year. And so, I mean, for me and my family, I think that we've really enjoyed this year. It's been a good year for us. We were able to move into a new house, and we ended up getting a new car and all that kind of stuff, which was stressful in the process. But God worked everything out, and He's been faithful to us. But it's been a good year. And I want to think back on some crazy things that happened this year. We had the Hawaiian missile crisis. Not quite as bad as the Cuban Missile Crisis, but you guys remember when everybody's smartphones in Hawaii went off and said to prepare for an incoming ballistic missile attack? And of course, it was somebody accidentally set off an alarm somewhere, and it triggered all these things. But I started thinking about it, and I don't really know how you prepare for a ballistic missile attack. I couldn't figure that out. I was talking to someone. Is it just walk in the room and tell your family, "I love you," and I'll see you on the other side? Because thinking if something that big touches down, there's really nowhere, where are you going to go? I know, I'm not old enough to have done this, but didn't you guys have to do, some people had to do, the nuclear bomb, where you get under your desk? Is that desk really going to do it? Just think. I don't think, it was like when I was in school and we do earthquake drills, and we were on the second floor of the building, and after the earthquake drill's over, teacher says, "Does anyone have any questions about this?" "Yeah, I have one. The kids beneath us, they're getting under their desks too, right, in case the ceiling comes down?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Aren't we the ceiling that's coming down? Is this really necessary? If it's coming down, we're all just, So it's kind of scary. We lost a few celebrities this year. Penny Marshall passed away recently. For the young people, that was Laverne from Laverne and Shirley. We lost Aretha Franklin. Passed away this year. To all of my friends in the nerd community, we lost Stan Lee this year, the creator of Marvel Comics and co-creator of many of the Marvel characters, including Spider-Man. So a lot of, we lost people this year. Maybe you guys have lost people this year. Obviously, the world's gained a lot of people this year. A lot of babies were born. None in my family this year, though, and even in my extended family. So somebody needs to... Not us, no. Oh, no. God shut that door, and I padlocked it. But no, I've really enjoyed 2018, and it's been, like I said, it's been a good year, and I'm really looking forward and exciting to what next year brings, to what that means for us as a church, for my family. It's going to bring some interesting changes for us as a family, because starting next fall, we'll have a kid in junior high. Which does a lot of things for us. One, it means I will then be the pastor of my child, which is a different dynamic than I've ever had in youth ministry. And two, it'll be weird because now when I'm like, "Oh, this is how much youth camp costs," I'm like, "Oh, I have to pay for this now." So we'll see. I don't know. But, we're very excited about all the changes coming. He's super excited to be in youth group too, so we're excited to have him there. But hopefully when you look back on this year, you have a lot of fond memories of things that happened. Maybe you don't, though. Maybe you look back and you're like, 2018 was a struggle. 2018 was hard. 2018 was when we really were challenged with things. And I would still encourage you to look at that maybe through a little bit of a different lens today, though, that even see that God was with you that entire time. See, oftentimes in our life, we have a tendency to look at problems through a human lens, through a human perspective, through our own perspective. We see a problem and we don't think, okay, well, how, this is an opportunity for us to show our faith, or this is an opportunity for God to show us His power, or anything like that. We look at a situation and instantaneously we begin to panic, we begin to freak out, we begin to go, "Oh my goodness, what are we going to do? How are we going to handle this? I don't know what to do. This is crazy, this is bad, this is awful." And we look, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be a bad medical diagnosis, it could be loss of a job, it could be anything, finances changing, an extra bill shows up, any of that kind of stuff. And we get in these moments where we begin to freak out. Because we oftentimes, like I said, we view things through a human perspective. We think of things in terms of the way we know the world works, or the way that the world has taught us that it works, and not that we forget so many times that God is so much bigger than the things that we're struggling with. So much bigger than the areas of our lives where things are going wrong, where we have issues, where we have problems. So there's a couple stories in the Bible that I want to look at today of accounts of people who were in trouble, of people who were in the midst of hard times, the midst of difficult situations. And the first one we're going to look at is found in 2 Kings chapter 6. starting in verse 8. And it's kind of crazy. It was one of those things, like, I think God really wanted me to share this morning, because when I was opening up my Bible to mark it this morning, I opened up to, like, exactly that page, and it wasn't previously marked. If you guys know the odds of doing that, it's, I don't believe in coincidences like that. So it's really, really cool. But it starts off, and it says, the king of Aram was at war with the king of Israel. So what Aram would do, though, is he would start sending, and he would start trying to set traps for the king of Israel all over, and he would send his guys to wait. And every time he would set his army and his raiders to go and attack the king of Israel and all this kind of stuff, he would send them there to wait. God would warn Elisha, and Elisha would go tell the king, hey, don't go there. Hey, don't do that. And so the king starts to get really frustrated, and he looks at all of his men, and he goes, which one of you is a spy? Who's doing this? And they start to freak out, because you guys know when the king's not happy, it's like when mama's not happy in the house, right? Like you just hope it's not you, right? Who did that? It was one of the kids, dear. It had to be one of the kids. I mean, it was Riley. She's little and cute. It's easier. Just blame her. It was Riley. No, but they were trying to get away. They were worried, and so they said, no, it's not. Oh, king, it's not us. They have a prophet in Israel who's warning the king every time you set these plans out. So the king sends his army after him. He says, go and find out where he is so I can send troops to seize him. And the report came back, Elisha is at Dothan. So one night the king of Aram sent a great army with many chariots and horses to surround the city. So when the servant of the man of God got up the next morning and went outside, there were the troops, horses, and chariots everywhere. Oh, sir, what shall we do now? The young man cried to Elisha. Don't be afraid, Elisha told him, for there are more on our side than are on theirs. Then Elisha prayed, O Lord, open his eyes and let him see. The Lord opened the young man's eyes, and when he looked up, he saw the hillside around Elisha was filled with horses and chariots of fire. So as the Aramean army advanced toward him, Elisha prayed, O Lord, please make them blind. So the Lord struck them with blindness as Elisha had spoken. So then I'll just kind of paraphrase the end. He leads them. He says, oh, you guys can't see here. I'm going to take you where you need to go. And he takes them and marches them right into, Israel, in front of the king of Israel and all this kind of stuff. And here's all these guys. Suddenly, when their eyes get opened back up, standing surrounded by the army of Israel, not a place you want to be. And the king says, well, what am I supposed to do? Should we kill them? And he says, no. You treat them as prisoners of war. You feed them a good meal, and you send them on their way. And the king of Aram is so impressed by all of this that he says, you leave them alone. The raiders never came back into Israel again after this. But the most impressive thing to me is in the moment, the way the servant reacted versus the way that Elisha reacts to the problem. Right? The young servant of Elisha, who I'm assuming is the same servant who's referenced other times, whose name is Gehazi. And Gehazi is a good indicator for where most people normally sit. He's the same one who, when Naaman comes and offers Elisha all of this money to heal him, and Elisha says, no, you go do this, and I'm not taking any of your money. Gehazi's the one who goes after him and says, hey, my master changed his mind, and he would like all that stuff. Right? He's the one who, he's got a very human response to a lot of things. So he walks out, sees them surrounded by an army, sent there to kill him, and his first thought is, well, that's it. He essentially looked at his phone and saw the missile crisis thing, ballistic missiles incoming. Well, I guess that's it, right? Like, that's all there is. And so he begins to freak out. And Elisha looks at him and says, no. He goes, you don't need to worry, because there are more for us than who are against us. So the first point that I want to talk to you about when it comes to dealing with problems and crises of faith and all these moments is, the first thing is that avoiding the problem isn't faith, it's foolishness. See, Elisha doesn't say, there's no problem. He doesn't look out and go, oh, there's nothing to worry about. There's no army. He doesn't pretend that army isn't there. He sees it. He knows full well this is not a good thing if they get to him. But a lot of times, we develop what I like to refer to as ostrich Christianity. Ostriches are known for, and I don't know if it's actually a true fact or not, you have to talk to a zoologist, but at least it's the myth about them that when danger comes that they bury their heads in the ground. Kind of the same idea that your toddler has, like, if I can't see you, then you can't see me, which is why children are notorious for hiding their head with the rest of their body just out in plain sight. My uncle, apparently, years ago when he was little, hated getting his hair cut. And whenever my grandfather would go to get his hair cut, would go to cut his hair, I think it was probably because my grandfather would cut his hair. It's been my experience that when your haircut is done at home, and your mom is not a stylist by profession, there's reasons why children hide. We've all had that. My excuse was, if my mom sees the recording, I'm sorry. She poked me in the back of the neck with the scissors. To which I would tell that story to every stylist for about 10 years afterwards. And I'm sure it was because I was like 3 and wiggling around. But she poked me with the scissors, so never again. I didn't trust her with sharp objects near my neck. But my uncle would hide, and when he would go to hide from my grandfather, he would stick his head under the bed, leaving the rest of his body totally exposed, with this assumption of, if I can't see you, then you can't see me. And we do that a lot of times with problems in life, don't we? If I'm not looking at my problem, if I'm not thinking about my problem, then it's not really there. And we might even convince ourselves a little more, well, I'm just having faith that it's just, I'm not going to look at it because that's my way of having faith, that it's just going to get taken care of, because I'm just going to pretend it's not even there. Never once do I see a biblical character ever ignore a problem and say, oh, it's my faith. Faith isn't ignoring a problem is foolishness. It's childish. Children ignore things they don't want to do, assuming they'll go away. Teenagers ignore homework, assuming it's going to do itself. Anyway. No, it's true though. I was a teenager. I was horrible at procrastination. In college too. I wrote an entire research paper in one night because that's how long I waited. I didn't get a particularly good grade on the research paper, so let that be a lesson to those of you that are still doing that. Procrastination isn't good. But we do those things, right? We pretend the problems aren't there, and then all of a sudden assuming that it's not going to be there. Elisha doesn't do that. He sees the army. He acknowledges the army. He acknowledges the problem. He sees them coming towards him. The only thing that Elisha knows is that God is still on his side. See, Elisha can see. He knows that God's army is right there too. So he's not saying this isn't a problem. He simply knows there is something bigger and more powerful that's protecting him. My second point is we have to open our eyes to see that God is always bigger than our problems. God is always bigger. When we think through stories in the Bible where these things were happening, we have the Israelites at the base of the Red Sea, don't we? Where the Egyptian army is coming and God splits the Red Sea, allows them to walk through on dry land, and then when the Egyptians try to follow, closes it up. We see God empowering a young boy to be able to kill a giant. We see Jesus being able to heal a woman who had struggled with bleeding for over a decade. We see Jesus perform miracles. We see him bring people back to life. We see him heal lepers. We count the miracles. He did so many miracles while he was here. We look at the miracles the other apostles did. We look at the things that happened to them. When Peter's in jail, chained up, and all of a sudden he wakes up and all the chains are off of him and all the doors are open. We see these things and we read the Bible, don't we? And we believe those stories. Yet when situations come in our own life, the first thing we do is turn into the children of Israel who were so quick to point fingers at and say, man, they were so dumb in the Bible. God did all of these things, and every time something bad happens, they, oh, it's so terrible. No, they do the same thing we do. If we truly believe these stories the way we say we do, then when problems come, we ought to be going, okay, I know this is a problem, but I know my God is bigger. Yes. Not going, oh, what are we going to do now? Oh, God, you called me to do this to die. Right? That was the Israelites, right? He brought us out here into the desert to die. He wanted us to die. It was so much better in Egypt. It was better when you were in slavery? But that's how they react to everything, isn't it? And you'd have to wonder if they thought God was as big and powerful as he was, that the logic of just bringing people into the desert just to starve them to death. I don't think there's not much logic in that either. But for whatever reason, when problems hit, our logic engine in our brain seems to shut off too, doesn't it? And we think, oh, well, this is just, why would God let this happen to me? And why, and we just begin to, oh, woe is me, blah, 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 blah. Yet, we have all of these examples of God's power in our lives. My family, when I was little, we used to play a game that we took from a book that my mother used to read to us called Tales from the Kingdom or Tales of the Kingdom. And she saw the books I want to read into my children, but it's like allegorical all about, and it's, biblical stuff. But these little kids are always looking for the king who's an allegorical representation of Jesus, and he hides and kind of does things differently. And the kids in this place where all the Christians are and stuff will always go, oh, I see the king. And it's like when they see something special and they always see him. And so my family, we would start doing that. Whenever we would be out and about, and we saw God move in a way in our lives that we knew had to be him, we would say, oh, we see the king. I'll never forget, I was in 3rd grade, and we had begged my parents for about a year and a half to get a dog. We'd had one when we'd moved, but he had to live outside, and he was prone to wandering, and just no one really had any time to spend with him then, and so we'd had to give him to some family, and so we really wanted another dog, and so me and my sister, we got together, and we did what good kids do when they really want something from their parents. We wrote out a letter. And we made sure the handwriting was good, which means she probably wrote it. But we wrote out this letter saying, Mom, Dad, we love you so much. We promise we'll take care of the dog. We'll feed it. We'll water it. We'll do all this stuff. We'll water it. Yeah, we just spray the hose on it. We'll make sure it has water. We'll do all this stuff. And we begged for a dog. And so finally my parents gave in, and they began looking, and they decided that a big dog wasn't the way they wanted to go. They wanted to get a little Boston Terrier, which if you've ever seen them, they're like, these dogs are so ugly, they're cute. And they really are cute. And we went and we found a lady who was selling them. And we went and we picked him out and we bought him, and then we had to wait a couple weeks because, they have to be like 9 weeks old before they come home and all that stuff. So we went and we got him. We were so excited. We had our little puppy. We loved him. They're tiny. They look like little guinea pigs when you get them, right? They're not like when you get a big dog puppy and you're like, it's already huge. And you're like, this thing's just going to get bigger. They're actually small. And so we loved him, and we took him to the vet to get his first checkup, and the vet's doing all the checks on him, and she's listening to his heart. And she says, I hear a murmur, like a slight murmur in his heart, like there's a defect in his heart. Which is scary for a child who doesn't really even understand these things. We're like, oh, great, my puppy's going to die. And, if you've ever seen a child with a puppy, you understand how traumatizing that would be for a child. And so, or even for those of you who have pets, and no, you love your animals, you love your pets, you don't want them to die. Even though apparently poodles taste really good with barbecue sauce, I heard on Facebook. Is that right? It's not true. But anyway, if you guys didn't see on Facebook, there was a thing, I think Mike shared it. It said that Trump signed a bill saying that it was now illegal to eat dogs and cats in the U.S. I didn't realize that was something that we weren't already not doing. I didn't know, but anyway. But we took him in there, and we found out he had a heart murmur, and the breeder called us, and she heard about it somehow, and called us and said, if you want me to take the dog back, I'll buy the dog back from you, or you can give him back, and next time I have a litter of puppies, you can come and get one. And my parents said no. By this point in time, my sister and I were already super attached to the dog, and my mom was like, what is that teaching my children if because the thing has a defect, we just get rid of it, right? She's like, that's not a lesson we wanted to teach our children, so we kept him, and we decided we were going to pray for him all the time. We were always praying for our little dog. And we took him back in to the vet for some other checkup, and my mom was there, and she's like, my mom, who I love my mom, she's not afraid to share her faith at all, and she's like, we've been praying for our dog. Can you just check his heart? Can you just listen to it? And so the vet's like, and I'm sure the vet's like, whatever, lady, this is, the murmur's still going to be there, right? And he listened, and the vet listens and listens and goes, I need to get a different stethoscope, one that can hear a little better, because I'm not hearing anything. So the vet goes and gets another stethoscope and listens and goes, I don't hear a heart murmur anywhere. There's no signs of there being a murmur in there at all. We were like, me and my sister were like so excited, right? And we walk out and we look at my mom and we're like, we see the king, right? And we're so excited to call my dad, because this is back when like cell phones were like brand new. And so like, you had to pay like by the minute almost. It was like super expensive. And we're like, we need to call Dad. And Mom's like, I guess, so we called my dad and we're like, Dad, he's healed, he's fine. And he did. He lived to be 11 years old and all this kind of stuff, no heart issues ever. And it was just one of those moments that teaches you that God is so much bigger than the problem you think you see. And that may not seem like a big problem to adults, and I understand that, but to a child who loved their puppy, that was a huge deal. That was a moment where God showed me who he was and how much power he had and how much he cared for individual creatures and animals, that he cared enough to heal a little boy and a little girl's dog. How much more does he then care about you and the things going on in your life and the situations that are bigger in your lives? But we have to practice the principle that Elisha is trying to teach his servant here. And that principle that Elisha is trying to teach his servant isn't one of ignoring the problem. It's one of facing the problem, but understanding that God is still bigger. Of looking at it going, okay, God, I see this. I see the problem. I see this thing. God, you heard the same report from the doctor that I got. As a matter of fact, you knew what the doctor was going to tell me before he even told me, but I still know that you are the great physician and you can take care of this. You want to hear stories of stuff like that? Come talk to my wife. She has stories of 2 people that she knows or is acquainted with that have been healed of cancer in the last month, last week or 2. One of them, super cool. My daughter was so upset to hear about this. This lady my wife works with. My daughter was so upset because she was on chemo and stuff and her hair was falling out. My daughter was so distraught. She's like, we need to pray for her right now. So cool. My wife got to come back and say her cancer's gone. And her hair is going to grow back out. And Riley was super excited. My daughter is a prayer warrior. I'm telling you, if you don't feel good, go tell Riley you're sick. She'll pray for you. So one of those things you're like, okay, I'm doing okay as a parent. She's got that figured out. But it's this principle of understanding, okay, God, I know that right now when I look at my bank account and I look at what's coming in and what's going out, those numbers don't match in the bad way. It's nice when the numbers don't match when the stuff coming in is bigger than the stuff going out. We like that. It's worse when the stuff going out doesn't match the numbers of what's coming in, and we begin to panic and we begin to freak out and we go, okay, I don't have to do this. It's when we need to say, okay, God, I know that you are our provider. God, that everything in this world is yours. I know that you can take care of us. I know that you can be there for us. I know that you can handle this. So I'm not going to ignore it. I'm just not going to not pay my bills because God is going to do it. No, pay your bills. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying trust God to take care of where you can't go. The last point under this is, it's not faith when your life is going great, it's convenience. For those of you that have gone on the men's retreat the last couple of years, you've probably heard this story. For those of you, obviously ladies, in here, and some of the people who haven't had the opportunity to go with us, I'm going to tell you a story of a man. His name is Steve Zakuana. You might know who he is. He was a star player for the Seattle Sounders for a number of years. And Steve's an awesome guy. He's an awesome Christian guy. And he tells his story of how he was doing really good in soccer, and a stupid day one day with his friends almost cost him his soccer career, and he had to fight his way back. And he finally makes professional soccer, and he gets drafted by the Sounders, and he's making all this money, and things are going great. And he keeps referring to this guy who's a Christian older man that he says is his mentor that's just always there with him, and talks about how he was playing in one game, and something happens, and he breaks his leg, like horribly, like breaks both the bones in his leg. It's a nasty break. It requires surgery to fix. If you follow football, it was the same break that Tyler Lockett had on his leg a few years ago. I mean, just a bad deal. And he's there, and he said he called his mentor, and he says, I'm having a crisis of faith, because he's so upset. God, why would you let this happen to me? I fought my whole way back. You got me to professional soccer. You helped me get back here. You helped me get here. Why would you let this happen to me, God? I don't understand. He says, I'm having this crisis of faith. So he says, I go over to my mentor's house for dinner, and he says, and he's there, and he's on crutches and stuff. He goes, would you guys like to see the video of me getting hurt? And the wife and the daughter are like, yeah, let's see it. They see it, and they both go, oh, that's, the face that we make when we see somebody break something, right? If you've never made that face, Go on YouTube, look up Joe Theismann leg break. You'll make the face. Okay? It's awful. Or watch the beginning of The Blind Side. Just L shapes his leg. It's awful. But they watch the video and ooh, and they make the face. And he says, my mentor comes in and he watches the video and he sees what happens. And he just starts laughing. He starts laughing at the video and he goes, Steve's like, what? He goes, I got so angry. This guy's laughing at my pain. This is my crisis. And he goes, so later he went to speak somewhere and he invited me to come and hear him. He goes, and so afterwards he went back and he was back in the green room and I was back there waiting for him. And he goes, we talked a little bit and then he goes, do you remember when you showed me the video? And he goes, yes, I do. And he goes, do you remember me laughing? And he goes, yes, I slightly recall. He goes, you were mad, weren't you? And he goes, yes, I was. And he goes, do you know what made me laugh? He goes, it wasn't you getting hurt. He goes, it was that your faith was only as strong as your leg. That because your leg was broken, now you were having a crisis of faith, that the amount of strength you had in your faith was only as strong as your leg. He goes, that's not faith, that's convenience. It's not faith when your life is going good. It doesn't take faith to love God and to serve Him and to trust Him for everything when you have enough money to cover the bills, when you're in perfect health, when everything in your life and in your relationships and your family, when everything's going good. That doesn't take faith. It doesn't take faith to live for God when your life is perfect. It takes faith to live for God when you're going, God, I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand why I'm working as hard as I possibly can and I still don't have enough to make ends meet. God, I don't understand when I've done everything I possibly can for this child and they still won't listen and they still won't come to you. God, I don't understand why I've done this thing and I've done this thing and I don't understand, God. And it's not a lack of faith to tell God you don't understand. It's a lack of faith to say, well, obviously you're not real or you don't care. That's when your faith is in trouble. And if your faith is only as strong as whatever situation it takes to break it, then that's not real faith. Because faith doesn't give in when something bad happens. That's when your faith is proven. It's proof that you have it. The next blank, our faith cannot be based on God fixing our problem either. Because it's a beautiful story in Kings that the army is there and it stops. That God strikes those soldiers blind and they don't kill Elisha and they don't do all that other stuff. But the other story that I point out is Daniel chapter 3, and I'll just summarize it for you guys for the sake of time and me trying to read really, really small print in the Bible. It's the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And if there was ever a story probably more fitting for the cultural climate of our country, would be the story of Daniel and the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They're uprooted out of their culture, dropped into a foreign culture, a pagan culture that worships idols, and at this point in time is going to begin to worship its own king, and everything is backwards. Does that sound anything like America today? Everything's backwards, we don't understand. I scroll through my Facebook feed, and mostly the political stuff, I just scroll past it because it doesn't seem like anybody's making any points other than just argue with each other. But I keep scrolling, and the things that I read and the things I see, and a lot of the stuff that I see from kids who were at one point in time in a youth group that I was the youth pastor of, and seeing the way they live their life or the things they choose to believe, I'm going, I don't understand. I don't understand how you get to that point. I don't understand how you think that way. I don't get it. I don't understand how you can choose not to believe in God, but so many times for them, it was probably because they believed that God was supposed to fix their problem or fix some situation, and when He didn't do that, then all of a sudden, well, He must not be real. So here's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they're here in the town, and I used to know what their Hebrew names were, and I can't remember now, but it's Azariah is one of them, I think, and so they changed them, they gave them Babylonian names when they got there. It's weird that the account of them uses their, in the Bible, it's a little trivia fact for you. The account of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego uses their Babylonian names, but Daniel's always referred to as Daniel because his Babylonian name was Belteshazzar. So I don't know why they do that in there. Maybe it's different people writing at that point. I don't know. If you know, come talk to me afterwards. I'd love to know. A couple people in here might know. They might come talk to me afterwards. But they're there, and the king Nebuchadnezzar makes this idea. He builds this giant golden statue to himself. And he decides that every so many hours or whatever, these people are going to play music. And when you hear the music, it is your job to turn and bow and worship this golden statue of the king. And then he says, if you don't do it, you're going to be thrown into a fiery furnace. You're going to be burned in this furnace. So, of course, the music plays, and everybody kneels, and everybody bows, except, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they don't. And just like everywhere else in life, there's no shortage of people who are willing to point you out, right, for not doing things. And so, of course, there's somebody right there willing to point out that they didn't do it, right? So they get brought before the king, and the king says, well, here, you guys didn't do it. And they said, that's right, we cannot do that, O king. It's written that we can only worship the Lord our God. We will not bow our knee to you. We're very sorry. The king gets all mad, and he says, listen, I like you guys, though, so I'm going to give you one more chance. I'm going to play the music right now. You bow, you worship the king, you worship the statue. It's all good. They said, king, we're not going to do it. It doesn't matter how good the beat your musicians drop is, we're not going to do it, right? We are not going to bow to this statue. And the king gets so angry, he orders the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than it normally is or it's ever been. And they're there, and they say something so incredibly powerful to Nebuchadnezzar in this moment. They say, "O king," he says, "What is he?" They say, "Our God is strong enough to save us, yes. But even if he doesn't, we will not bow and worship your statue. Even if he chooses not to save us, we are not going to surrender our faith." And that's the kind of faith we need to have. Faith that believes that God can fix the situation, but faith that will sustain us through even if he doesn't. Because there's a lot of times that God doesn't fix the situation the way we assume that it needs to be fixed. We look at it and go, I don't understand. God, you could step in here and fix all of this right now. Why are you waiting? The 3 chose to remain faithful even if God didn't save them. Now, if you know the rest of the story, they throw them in the fire, and then all of a sudden the king goes, I don't understand. We threw 3 men in the fire. Now there's 4 men in there, which is a Christophany. It's an appearance of Jesus in the Old Testament. And he's in there, and it says they call for them to come back out. The rope's burned off. Their clothes, their hair doesn't even smell like smoke at all. And there's this amazing moment of God saving them because of their faith. But I love the faith even more of King, even if we perish in the fire, we're still going to trust God. That's the kind of faith that changes things. That's the kind of faith that sets an example to the people that you know who don't know Jesus, the people who you work with on a daily basis, the kind of faith that says, you know what, this ailment that I have, God is more than capable of healing me. But even if he doesn't, I'm still going to praise him. I'm still going to thank him. I'm still going to tell him how wonderful and how amazing he is. I serve a God who's able to step in and fix all of my financial problems right now. But even if he doesn't, I'm still going to give him glory. I'm still going to give him praise. I'm still going to honor him with everything that I do. And we have to remember that God's plan is better than ours. It's like I said so many times, we get to this point where we're like, okay, well, God, I know you can fix the problem, and this is how you should do it. And God says, well, I'm going to fix the problem, but I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it this way. And Isaiah 55, 8 and 9 says, my thoughts are nothing like your thoughts, says the Lord, and my ways are far beyond anything you could imagine. For just as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. Says God informing him, listen, I am so much smarter than you could even possibly think or begin to be. I see things so much differently than you do because you see things through your human lens. You interpret things through your lens, through your thing. I see everything. And it takes more faith to say yes to God and his plan even than it does to say, okay, God, you can fix it and here's how. Oftentimes there's things maybe he wants to teach us through that. Maybe if it's a financial thing and you're praying and asking God for help, maybe he doesn't want to step in and just solve the financial problem because maybe you made the problem through bad choices. And he wants to teach you financial responsibility. I'm not saying that's everybody's case. I understand things happen. Things go bad. We've been in situations where people have lost jobs and money is just not there. And if that's you, I'm not saying that you made poor decisions. But a lot of people in America, their financial problems came from their own decisions. They kept sliding that credit card, thinking it was a good idea till the bill came. And the bill does come, right? They want their money back. You say, God, I understand that you could heal me right now. But maybe God is trying to say, I want you to rely on my strength for a little while. I want you to learn to trust me even in the midst of this. There's so many situations I could bring up. You could talk to my wife, and I'm sure she could tell you that the stuff that she's gone through, there was moments where she was like, God, if you could just fix this whole thing right now, it would be so much better. But then you fast forward a few years to when she's out of all that stuff, and she gets to sit in front of a room full of women and share with them the things that she's gone through, and where God was able to bring her through all of that, and have woman after woman in tears coming up to her going, thank you, you gave me so much hope because I'm walking through what you went through. Because I've been in that situation, and now I know there's hope that things can get better. So our eyes need to be open. We need to open our eyes so that when problems come, when difficulties come, when hard situations come, we look at the situation not through the human lens of, I don't know what I'm going to do. This must be it. God must not be real. He must not love me. He must not care. But to, I know that there are more who are for me than who are against me. I know that there is a God who loves me and who is bigger than whatever situation is sitting in front of me. But we also have the faith to say, God, even if you don't fix this right now, I'm still going to trust you. To have the faith that says, God, even if you don't fix it, I know you'll bring me through it. When we're faced with problems, we must remember that our God is big enough to see us through, and that his plan is always better than ours. God's plan is always so much better than anything we could hope it could be. So if the musicians want to go ahead and come back up, we're going to close this morning. And as they play, I want you guys to close your eyes all across the room for a minute. And just think. Maybe some of you in here, this message is the exact thing you needed to hear. Because you're going through a hard time, you're going through a struggle, you're going through something that's difficult. I want you to know that God understands that he gets it that we hurt. He gets it that we struggle. But if you're here this morning, I want you to begin to think about just stepping up and saying, I'm going to have faith. I'm going to be strong. If that's you this morning and you'd like prayer for that, you say, Pastor Josh, I would just like you to pray for me that I would continue to have faith through this situation, that you would help me to stay strong, that God would help me to stay strong in the midst of this struggle. If that's you this morning, would you just slip your hand up wherever you're at? Thank you. Thank you. You can just slip them up and put them down. You don't have to leave them up. I'm going to pray, and then we're going to sing. And just encourage you guys that as we worship God, just pray, talk to him yourself, say, God, give me the faith to make it through. Give me faith like Elisha. Give me faith like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that says, I trust you no matter the outcome. God, we thank you. Lord, we thank you so much for who you are. God, we thank you that as we stand here close to the end of 2018, God, we thank you that you've given us another year. And God, we thank you for the amazing things that you're going to do in 2019 in our church, in the people of our church, in our community. God, we're believing in you for big things. God, I pray for those this morning who raised their hands. God, I just say they need faith to keep going. God, to keep trusting you, Lord. I pray that you would help them. I pray that you would strengthen them. God, that you would bring people into their lives to help give them encouragement. That you would bring scriptures to mind, and as they read, God, that would stand out at them, God, of your faithfulness, of your power, and of who you are. I pray that you would remind them every day, God, that you love them, that you're watching out for them, and that you have their best interest at heart, and that you know what you're doing, even when we don't understand. Give us all that kind of faith, God, that when difficulties come, that we trust you for the outcome, no matter what the outcome is. In your name we pray, Jesus. Amen.